Again here. Thank you for this invitation. This is my third consecutive year. It seems that I'm not as crazy as I thought I would be. So we're a little behind schedule, so I will skip all the introductions, just go to the blog and see who I am. So today, let's talk about two things. First, we'll talk about all these companies here, what they're doing in the market today, and maybe we will also talk about where we are heading to, and in some cases in the long run, where they're going to. And then we'll talk about what might happen in 10 years' time with many of the things they are offering us. In 10 years' time, it will be impossible for us to know whether Apple, Google, and Facebook will be alive and well, but we'll try to guess. So we will start right away with our presentation and talking about Facebook. I chose Facebook because we talk about surfing the internet and we think of water, and this is Poseidon, the king of water. That's where we will start. So with each company I will refer to, I will first put a line saying what the company is all about. How do they make a living? Because one thing is to see how they generate money, and the other is to see what they do, really. So when we analyze these companies, it's important to know what they do. In the case of Facebook, how do they make money? As you know, through the advertisements that they place. So on the one hand, if they ask you, what does Facebook do? They say, well, it's a social network. But how do they make money? Through ads, as if it were an advertising company. However, an interesting thing happened about a week ago. This is something I wrote in my blog 2 years ago, and I mentioned here last year. Facebook, as it has 950 million users, thought, why not take advantage of this population to sell them things? And one thing happened last week, which is very interesting. It was in this, if you're in the States and you go to the right side of Facebook, it says, oh, it's your friend's birthday today. That's what they did. But apart from telling you that it's your friend's birthday, that, as Nicolas said, it's easier for you to do things now. They said, give him something as a present. And that is really cool, because I know that person and I know it's his birthday, and Facebook knows whether it's a boy or a girl and what to give them as a present, and they make suggestions to me. So Facebook is now stepping into what I call proactive sales and not preemptive sales. If I go to Amazon or buy.com, I want to buy something, I go there, I look for it, but here Facebook anticipates my wish and say, hey, try to buy something, try to buy this for your friend. So this is proactive. Another thing that IDs 7177, if you go to my blog and see that number, you will get more information on that. And now, about Facebook, I will also mention something that I started last year regarding the fact that these social networks are becoming your passport or your global identity in the planet. And there are two examples here. Lendo.com is a virtual bank on the internet. And in order to lend you money, they don't go to your credit reputation. They say, show me your Facebook account to see who you are. Why? Because a human being looks at your profile and says, oh, you have so many friends, you have this, you have that. They look at your pictures, and this gives you trust. And this is how the world turns. And now in the US presidential elections, for the first time in Washington, they are allowing you to vote through your Facebook account. So that's the way we are moving. Facebook, one day, or social networks in general, will become our passport and our identity worldwide. One thing that I'm surprised about Facebook is that they have done nothing in terms of corporations, and they will have to do that sooner or later. Today, most companies do the opposite. They want to go away from Facebook. I use a firewall. Nobody should go into Facebook. This is distracting. But I think there are so many opportunities there for companies, like for services to customers, and later on we'll talk about that in another slide. So I'm going very fast because I have too many things to say. Face phone, I called it face phone, that's what I coined. I think they won't do this for the time being, because they already have open doors in the main platforms, iOS and Android, for all navigators. So maybe they become enemies of the person who's helping them get the customers. So for the time being, they won't have a face phone. Twitter, what happens with Twitter? I will mention this very quickly. They do not know how they're going to make money. I don't know why I put this, but it somehow reminded me of Twitter. According to them, they will put ads in the stream, a list of tweets that you follow. But that's very cumbersome. It doesn't give me the essence of Twitter. I want to get in touch with my friends. Another thing, an error they made, and they are beginning to realize that when they opened the API, they failed. They shouldn't have done that. So that was an exception to the rule. It's better not to open API, because that's blocking the company from announcing or serving in a different way through their own interface. So what do I recommend them? I don't know if you have tried, but especially a tablet, that when you go to Twitter and you see any tweet with a link that says, hey, look at this conference, and you click that, what does Twitter do? They don't take you out from there to the browser. In the interface, they show you the page. That is where companies should focus to place ads, because I will click there, I will want to know what's there, and because that's not in your face like putting the links. So I think if they do that, literally $2 million a day can be generated. Microsoft, on the other hand, in my opinion, is a wild card among all the companies I know of, because they are at a crossroads where all the future is being gambled. It depends on what's going to happen during this Christmas 2012 and next year. So how does Microsoft make money? Well, by providing licenses. This is where they get most of their money. A few years ago, like 4 years ago, for the first time they opened up to the public, they disclosed the information they make. And over 95% of their income comes from Windows and Office licenses, and the rest were supported by other divisions and commissions and so on. So that's how they make a living, and they are beginning to experiment with commissions, special commissions. When you sell games, Microsoft obtains a commission charge all through the Windows store, and these figures I put here are probably different. So what happens with Windows 8 first? They will sell copies, of course, they will sell copies, but why? Because of what I said last year, Microsoft and Windows and Office are like tracks for a railroad. They are very well oiled with butter, and the train is coming at a very fast speed, and 8 years ago the locomotive stopped. And why is it working? Due to inertia. There is dependency on Windows in the market, so it's not so easy to leave markets, and that's why they are going to sell millions of licenses yet. But the question is, what will happen next year, at the end of next year? What percentage of the market grew for Windows vis-a-vis the former years? And there they will realize something that is not so welcome. And I'm going to mention many companies, and I really love Microsoft and I want it to be successful, but due to competition we will put some pressure on Google and Apple. Windows 8, in addition, is going to create confusion at several levels. The interface. This is the first time that Windows literally changes the interface from Windows 3.1. Since Windows 3.1. The other Windows, XP, Vista and 7 are almost the same thing, or windows that you open, enlarge, diminish and so on. But this is quite different. So at the business sector, where people hate change, they will notice and this will become a problem. And the other challenge for Windows 8 is the fact that Microsoft is not doing a good job by educating consumers from now that there will be two versions of Windows. RT will be sold in $500 and Pro, which will be $1,000 upward. So you take your laptop with your Windows 8, and how do I install this application? What I had last year will not work. So you need to educate your consumers more. And then the price. I think that to compete at this stage, Steve Gorman has given indications that this is going to be so. If you sell a tablet at $600 to compete with iPad now is suicidal. But let's see, and to sell the Pros at $1,000 up is going to be very, very difficult. Why? Because of the expectations that were created with Amazon, Google and Apple. Nobody wants to pay $1,000 for a tablet. That's a reality. Windows Phone 8. If now I were in a coma and I awoke 10 years later and buy a new cell phone and the Windows Phone is comparable with that of Apple and Google, honestly, that's the cell phone I would buy today. They really innovated. Samsung copied, but these people did something different, and they did it well. They did it. But what happened? 5 years after the iPhone. Today, the mindset of consumers is Android and Apple, and they will face the same problem they faced. Erase. I won't say this. I will say this later on. Regarding the Xbox, that's a good point of Microsoft today. It will keep on growing, it will move forward, so much so that Microsoft one day will have to separate it as a company, will have to split it up. If we talk about Microsoft, we have to talk about Intel. Intel, in my opinion, is in a serious difficulty, even though its sales are going up. This is how they make money, hardware. But the hardware is almost linked to x86 structure and servers, chipsets and GPUs, SSDs. You know what it all is. So what happens? Windows, Microsoft has Windows RT ARM, and the most popular versions of Windows will be the $500 tablets if they sell, not the $1,000 tablets. So what's the message for Intel? The message is, look, I'm ready to see if this is what the consumers want, I will do this. And today the problem Intel has is that the world is moving towards mobile platforms, and 100% of cases, or 99% of cases, it all works with the ARM architecture. That includes Apple, Google, Amazon, Samsung, etc., etc. So what's going to happen apart from this? The other business of GPUs, where they make a lot of money, Intel makes much more money with graphic chips, and they don't use the Intel chips, and the same is true of the other components. So my suggestion is, a few years ago they had an agreement with DEC, and through them they have access to an ARM license. If I were Intel, I would start developing that right away. So this will be a change in terms of their profitability. Something interesting, they did an ARM upscale architecture and they sold it. In ID 8170, and there's information if you look at my blog. What happens with Nokia? First, what do? They devote to hard work. They earn money by doing hard work. But they underestimated the smartphones market, and they fell into high water. So their manager was a high-ranking Microsoft manager before going to Nokia, and they had an agreement saying that they would adapt to Windows, and in my opinion that was a very poor decision. What would I have done in their place? I would have put my bet on two horses. First, Android. And I guess that if they had adopted Android 2 years ago, today we would be talking about Nokia and not Samsung as a provider for Android. And secondly, to diversify, and just in case you become a market, I would have adopted smartphones. And today, Windows Phone is going to take off, might take off. I will skip all that. And another, this in the end, it's better to be the tail of a lion than the head of a fly. Because Nokia's manager says, conference after conference, he says the same thing. We are the leaders in Windows Phone. And I say, you are the leader in a platform that only has 3%. Wouldn't you like to be having half of a larger platform? So it's lack of vision on his part, I think. Mozilla is here exclusively because, as you know, out of the blue, they decided to be part of the mobile market. And the only thing I'm going to say about this is that the Mozilla gets commissions. Most of their income comes from Google because they have the Firefox. And their OS will be called Firefox OS. The Spanish Telefónica has a lot of influence, has contributed money, resources, and all that. But in my opinion, if 4 years ago they would have done that, they would have been successful before Firefox, before the brand diluted as it happened due to Chrome, due to the Google Chrome. Firefox is not today what it used to be. And in addition, we have Android. Android at that time was not in the market or was not mature, so too late. And apart from that, this is going to be exclusively with HTML5. This is what I would like to have in an ideal world, but that's not the reality today. People want native applications, high performance, especially if they are video games. And video games have demonstrated that they are a motivator to adopt new platforms. So in my opinion, it's a niche. They are going to spend their money 2 years working for nothing, and it will become open source. And now we'll talk about the BlackBerry people. Let's see how the company feels right now. Oh, this is a mistake on my part. Oops, sorry again. Sorry. What happened to RIM? I'm not just poking fun at them, because for a long time they could not react to the market. How do they make money with hardware and business services? But what happens to RIM is that the Titanic is really going down in very slow motion. In recent years, the share of the market went from less than 40% to less than 10%. They are laying off 2,000 employees. Some of the managers resigned. They are trying to come out of the Playbook's inventory, and they created a very unsuccessful app. And Celestica, a Canadian company that manufactured cell phones, said, "We're not going to produce this for you. Find some other supplier." So 2 or 3 years ago, I suggested to them, why not adopt Android? And also to explain what is the difference. Why don't you do BBM and control this and offer the best BBM experience in your Android cell phones, so that you can have BBM with Samsung, but then get the best from this company and the security guarantee that they offer in the networks and the systems to deal with the devices at the business level. Today, I think that it is very difficult to save the company, but maybe a last attempt that I don't know if it's going to work. What can I tell you? About 2 weeks ago, I wrote an article on that. Adopt Android or Windows Phone. But it's going to be more costly now, because this will not be able to go universally. They will have to buy WhatsApp. And this company is becoming the BBM for most of the world. But even then, we have BB10, the new OS. If you have not seen the video, it's wonderful. But the same will happen as happened to Microsoft when Windows 7 was created, with the first version of Windows Phone. People already had a poor image of the mobile Windows that they did not want to read about the new OS. I experienced that. Some people told me, oh, this is useless. And I said, what are you talking about? So I think this is going nowhere. Google, the Atlas supporting the world with Gmail and browsers and all that. How does Google make a living? You know where this question is leading me. What is Google? It's a technology company. It has Gmail and all that. But Google is not that. That is just a shadow or a facade. Google really is an advertising agency, and this has to be understood. This explains many things. For example, why do they have Gmail? It's a way for Google to have thousands of users. While they read their emails, they read the ads. Android, why is Android free of charge? This has nothing to do with the fact that they are altruist. No. The strategy is very simple. Hey, there is Apple, Microsoft, and everybody is going to use the internet in their hands. So those platforms will be closed. That means they won't be able to access our own things. So let us create Android and let's give it free of charge so that all the companies adopt it. And when they adopt it, we will cross our fingers and assume that they will substitute other applications by default and they will use Gmail, which is what really happened. So Gmail, Google TV, Google Plus are ideas Google has to open up the doors to their properties and sell advertising. Understand this, please. However, the company has two great threats. The first I mentioned, these are the social networks like Facebook. You know what happens? Why do many companies use Google to sell their announcements when there are so many others before Google? Why do they choose Google? Google is different because they have the access technology. For me to click on my ads more frequently, I need to know my clients better. So they created the Google's browser that looks in all pages and say, this is technology. I see many words that have to do with technology, so I will put technological ads here. This talks about flowers, so I put about flower shops, and this increased the frequency. And of course, Google is more effective than many other advertising companies. That's how it was able to grow. Now, what happened with Facebook and future things? I tell Facebook, look, whether I'm man or woman, this is where I graduated, what I'm doing, how I work, what I read, what things I like. The difference with Google is that they just assume that for the fact that I visit a technology page, they think I am a technologist. Facebook knows who I am. The Facebook platform is growing because you really know, if you announce there, that you're getting to the right public. So, Google Plus. The second great challenge or threat is voice browsers. Siri by Apple is one example. When I announced by Twitter that I was coming here, a reader said, it's going to be very cold in Uruguay. Bring your warm clothes. And I took my iPhone. Siri, what's going to be the temperature next Monday in Uruguay? And Siri said what it was. What happened? I didn't go to a browser. I never told him go to Google or this or that. He just gave me the answer. And now it's Apple who has the power to decide where it gets the answers from. This is very, very simple. Oh, what is the population of Uruguay? You ask Siri, and Siri is going to give you that information. And this is going to become more and more advanced, which becomes a threat. That's why we now have Google now. And we know that in the future these things will become more and more natural. So there will come a point when Google will have to say what to do with the ads, because I'm not even looking at the screen to get my answer. It's a voice that tells me, and I will not see the ads. So that's quite a challenge. And if we talk about Google, we need to talk about Android. My opinion is that it will keep on growing, it will be the leader, and if I had to guess what's going to happen in average in the world, we will have Google, Android 55%, iPhone 20 to 30%, and the rest, Windows Phone or whoever comes next. So let's talk about Samsung. Samsung is like Mercury. It moves fast. Because when they announced what happened? This is Motorola, this is this brand and the other, but Samsung was very agile and very witty. They decided to change their interface, making it more simple. And what does Samsung do to make a living? They sell mobile hardware. They sell TV sets, they make the chips for Apple, ironically, but now they have a love-hate relationship with Google. Why? Why do I love you? Because thanks to Android, I'm the leader in Android in the worldwide. That's good. But at the same time, the company reached its ceiling, and this is not feasible to continue in the long run. So all the Android manufacturers will reduce prices and so on. So what would Samsung like if they had the possibility to choose to create their own ecosystem, as Google has Google Play, Apple has iTunes, and so on? And we have seen some hints in this regard. When they launched Samsung Galaxy S3, oh wow, this cell phone is out here. And in my article I wrote, wonderful cell phone, but the great news today was not that. Because you will forget about this when S4 comes out, but the big news was the hubs of Samsung. It's a component that will allow them to sell from outside the Google Play shops. And hubs. They also announced that they will have a Galaxy version that is an alternative version called Tizen. And you can be 100% sure or 99% sure that that Galaxy S3 will have a store 100% controlled by Samsung. I don't have time to explain this. That was a legal case. Now, Apple is the Zeus of the industry, the most valued company in the world. How do they make money? First, by selling premium solutions in a closed system of hardware and software. It's premium, it's top price. And secondly, through commissions, like every time you buy a video or a song or an application or a book. But due to the fact that it gives high profit, they need to differentiate themselves from the rest. If I have something that is very similar to an iPhone 5, some people will say, why did I pay so much more money for iPhone 5? That is the crossroads. They will have to innovate much faster than they did before. How are they going to do so? By in-app app stores. In the last year, over 90% of their income in the App Store were through free-of-charge applications. You download them free of charge, and then you buy modules as part of the application. Last year also, in a discussion or panel, we discussed iPad. Is this fashionable or not? I said, no, it's not fashionable. Up until August this year, 84 million iPads were sold, and by the end of the year, we will have been over 1 million would have been sold. iPhone 5, when it was launched, many people were sort of disappointed. But in fact, in my opinion, personally, this is the best cell phone in the market. It's powerful and it is easy to use for the user. But you cannot deny that one Galaxy S3 has a very similar power if compared to the iPhone 5. So we started comparing them. At the level of hardware, they are very similar. Now, what happens with software? What happened? You all know about the scam of Apple Maps. I was there and I suffered a lot. When I downloaded the Apple Maps, I said, what a wonderful interface, until I left my house. When I left my house, literally, I couldn't find my way. I took out my tablet and I tried to find, and I couldn't get anywhere. Literally. I have it here. It's incredible. Well, but what happened? Many people say, oh, this company is no longer magical. And I wrote an article that's going to be published tomorrow midnight with lots of details. But to sum up, what happened? Who did map application to Apple? Google. And who's Google? The competitor, number one competitor. So, to start with, so now Apple had two options. One, to continue using the application, but that was a problem. Why? Because in the last 18 months, Google has been quickly releasing new Google Maps for Android, and the level is much higher than in the Apple version. So how can a company that specializes in selling premium products is selling me a product that is worse than that of the competitors? That's not acceptable. That was the problem. They waited for the agreement to expire or terminate by next year. The second option, Apple, very friendly. Oh, my brother Google, how are you? I have a proposal for you. Why don't you do the iPhone applications identical to that of Android? And Google will say, and what will you give me in return? I have no incentives to do that. Secondly, I better not do it. And if you want to do it, well, give me all your users' data so that I can look at the data of the users, and Apple was not going to do that. So the solution, and I would have made the same solution, probably you would have too. Let's just get out of this. Unfortunately, in this decision we are making, instead of waiting 1 year, we'll do this now. Why? Why delay what is inevitable? And unfortunately, this is one of those cases where the end consumer, the civilian in the war, fell between the two crossfires. Another thing, why is it so important for Apple to develop its Maps platform? Apple has... It's easy to predict what they are moving, because every 2 or 3 years they decide to go into a new market where things are not well and they will fix them. But now there is one market that really has that quality, and it's a large market. That's the blessed radio for your car. All the things you buy have the worst interfaces. They are slow, as can be imagined. If Google gets into that market, well, be careful. You should include the whole system. For example, I'm driving, I call Siri, and I said, I want to eat. Is there a McDonald's nearby? Yes, 1 mile away. Okay, read the menu. It reads the menu. Buy me a Big Mac. It does so. All that is integrated. Google cannot do that for Apple. So you get to the window, when you get there, everything is paid for, you just pick it up and leave. And you know, there's a commission paid by McDonald's because of that sale. That's the way things are heading to. Last year, I also mentioned iOS and OS X are going to integrate. And one term I coined, IOXX. This is a convention of both. And maybe Apple will do this 3 or 5 years in time. CPU, the main processor, is in iPhone 5. It's the first the company manufactures from zero. And this is a cheap ARM on, but they have a special license that only 4 or 5 companies have worldwide. So they know about the instructions of the processor and they implement it as they wish. And this opens the doors for Apple in the future. And the company that bought Apple is called PSM, and they had the most brilliant minds of designers in microprocessing in the world. And definitely they have the capacity to tell Intel bye-bye, hasta la vista in the future. And we will use our own experts. And this is very, very similar to Apple's mentality. In the medium, short term, the company has not yet realized how the iPod Nanos were for watches. So this is a potential market. You can use computer garments, but in the future, iPads will have to show a difference. The company has eSense technology, so you can, the screen vibrates and you feel like textures with your fingers. So if you go to Amazon and you see a garment that you like, you can feel it. You can feel the texture as if it were real. And sooner or later, though Steve Jobs would hate it, you have to use the virtual pencils, the stylus, for all the applications that are useful, in drawing or many others. And the iPad mini, as rumor has it, will come out this month. And just to give you an idea what we're talking about, on the left you have the Lexus 7 of Google, and the other one is iPad mini. The gray area is the size of the screen. It's going to be 8 inches, which would give more room for writing. But the interesting thing, if this is true, if Apple launches this, it is because they want to slow down the Google and the Amazon Fire. So I guess that the price could be $299 or $399. If so, I'm sure that they will stop the Android tablets and that they will sell more iPads than we can imagine. But lots of people want to buy an iPad, but they don't have the money. Finally, the last company I'm going to mention, Amazon, is one of the 3 favorites of mine. I always say so when I come here, and in my opinion, they are the titans, the most scary titans for Google and Microsoft. How do they make a living? Through commissions for services. This is not a company that sells products. They sell services, books, software, music, songs. Therefore, the more people that access their services, the better. That is why the Kindle Fires are so cheap, $200. If there were no anti-monopoly laws, they would give them out free of charge. They want you to consume instead of selling this. Razors, they tell you that you need to use them. So outside China, we have a very large company. It's the largest world e-commerce company outside China. Dominican Republic, where I live, is a country where Amazon does not sell. If you go to couriers, you will see 85% of what you see have the Amazon logo, and they don't sell to Dominican Republic. But everybody, like myself, ordered this in Miami, and the company in Miami transports it to Dominican Republic. Regarding e-books, Amazon has only one competitor, the Nook by Barnes & Noble, but Barnes & Noble does not have Amazon's infrastructure to sell additional products, so it will always be number one. E-books of Apple are becoming a niche at the level of education and technology because, contrary to Amazon, you have a platform with interactive books. In a primary school level or in college, you have 3D, see the molecules moving and so on. Regarding Kindle Fire, in my last year presentation, it was a week or two before Kindle Fire was sold, and my prediction was this is going to be the tablet that will sell more, because Amazon has an ecosystem that controls things in a very simple way and makes things simple for the consumer, and I'm sure they will appear in the main page of Amazon.com every time you visit that website. The prices of Amazon caused a domino effect in the industry. That's why Google had Nexus 7. And why? Because as Amazon lives by selling services, Google lives by selling ads and some services like Google Play. So Google will have the same motivation as Amazon. The more people using their tablets, more people will read their ads. And that's why they have the Nexus 7 for $200. Apart from that, this $200 will be very painful the offices of Microsoft, because how can you launch a $500 tablet when there's a good proposal for only $200? The Apple one will be best, but it's a $300 difference, and you think twice before buying it. The iPad mini was probably a response to Kindle Fire. Apple said 1,000 times, Kindle Fire is not competitor for us, but I think it is. Finally, very recently, about a month ago, the company launched Amazon Maps. And this tells me, where can you use an Amazon map? Is it useful on a tablet? Yes, but in general, you use it in your cell phone. So I think that next year, Amazon has all the pieces of the puzzle, and it will finally give us a cell phone. It's their own brand. I call it Ice because the other is called Fire, but, well, I don't know what name they will give it. So, let's see now the second part of my presentation.
Are we doing fine in terms of time? Well, you're very quiet. Either you like this too much or you want to run very fast. Now, let's talk about what I, José Elias, will do if I go to San Francisco, and then I need to come to this event. What would my life be? But before that, I would like to show you two different videos I have here. Something else I have. The two components that are there on the screen. One, Google Glass. Do you know what Google Glass is? Well, Google launched technology, which are some sort of glasses that have a webcam, and they're displaying in my eye a whole screen, and it looks like I'm watching at a full screen. And the other thing over there, it's the CD from Apple. Those two components will be the most important components in 10 years. Maybe this might not happen in 10 years, but maybe in 15. The first video I will be showing you, this is called Sight. I will fast forward this.
Voy a pausar. Continúen un segundo.
I will fast forward this. What's going on there? This man has some bionic contact lenses that I mentioned 2 years ago, which are literally being developed right now. That is to say, contact lenses that have a computer and an integrated cam there. So if you wear them, you will have some sort of matrix environment around you. So these are the things he perceives through the video. Just forget that these are contacts, but just imagine that it's a Google Glass that already exists. But just take a look at what the person sees. For example, remember that last year I talked about gamification. We're going to be using incentive points for everything. So if you run a lot, if you do a lot of exercise, we will give you extra points, and this will be for everything. People who solve problems with clients, whatever. So look at the person. He's in the kitchen, and he downloaded an application for his Google Glasses that allow him to assume that if he cuts those cucumbers, he will receive extra points, and because it's a game. Remember, that's what he is seeing. I will fast forward this. This is his apartment, the way he sees it. But actually, those are just white walls. He's choosing an outfit for going out. This is a date.
What do you mean?
Sorry?
In this date, please note that while he's talking to the lady, on top of her, he's getting a number of statistics that are being taken from social networks for what he likes, what he doesn't like. And then there's another part where he thinks that his brother will be helping him with the girl. But when he starts thinking about 10 years ahead, that's more or less what I mean.
A sports jacket and a normal one?
I guess a sports jacket is for people who want to look good even when they're chased by the police.
Lo voy a dejar ahí ese video, pero básicamente
I will leave it over there. Basically, once a girl sees how boring the guy is, she just thinks that just another bad date. Let's now take a look at another video. This is what's going on right now. Here, Google forbid a New York designer to wear the glasses. And this is how she sees the world. This is how she sees everything. This is through her eyes.
My goal in life is to tell every girl, every woman in the world that they can be the woman they want to be. I'm filming.
Voy a saltar unos cuantos. Ahí viene una modelo caminando, lo que ella...
Here we see a model going through the runway, and we see what she feels. And now we're getting back to what I wanted to mention. What would it be like 10 years from now? Gisela calls me, a video conference, 100 megabits per second in Uruguay, and she will tell me, Elias, we need you once again, and this time we will have two beautiful ladies waiting for you at the airport. And I will say, okay, I'll go. Back then, I will ask my personal assistant, what's my schedule for that day? She will say, it's clean, and I'll say, I accept. Of course, this can be done nowadays in CVs. This is the way I did it. How will be everything integrated in our environment? For example, when I come here, my virtual assistant, please remember that I will be wearing with the glasses and everything will be here. And I might be able to control everything from here. And I will be told in 1 hour the cab will be here. So I started walking, and when I get to the bathroom of the hotel in San Francisco, and I chose San Francisco because precisely 1 week ago, Google announced that in California, they granted the second or third license for robotic cars. They already had one in Las Vegas last year. So I go to the bathroom, and water is coming out at the temperature I like, because this is in the interface with the hotel system. So I get there, I change clothes, and I receive a message, the cab is waiting for you. I get out, I don't even take my suitcase, laptop, nothing. Just like this, I started walking, and on my way to the door opens, and when I get to the elevator, it's waiting for me. Why? Because I downloaded an application that connects to the hotel, and already the elevator is there, so that I don't have to wait. And when I get out of the hotel, I don't even have to worry about anything. I don't have to check out because it is done automatically. And when I get out, there will be a taxi outside waiting for me with no driver. In California, probably we will have robotic cars. So I get there, I just get in, that's all I have to do, because the vehicle already knows that it needs to take me to the airport. So, as I watch through the window, I see Google announcements, probably, and they will tell me, hey, there's an offer, and maybe I might receive that offer, so I decide, well, I will take that offer since I... So I get to the airport, and when I get to the airport, I start walking, and now in my 3D glasses, we will have 2 eyes for our new glasses. I will see in the floor some arrows. I will be showing the way for me to find my sandwich because I'm hungry. I will just follow the lines, and guess what? When I get to the restaurant, the food is waiting for me, warm. How can that be possible? Because my assistant communicated and told what I wanted, and by the time I get to the airport, everyone would be waiting for me. Of course, my person saw a picture of me on the screen, and they gave me everything I needed, and everything was done behind stage. Or maybe this was done with Google Wallet. So, let's see what else. I finished my meal, and now I have to go through migrations, but this time I just walk. No one sees me, no one searches me, because I'm a frequent traveler, so they can analyze all the patterns of my face with high-resolution cameras, and they know who I am. And the scanners, I won't have to take off my shoes, and the fact that you're not taking a suitcase with you will make everything easier. So you just walk through the aisle with as if there were no security there. Afterwards, you are guided, you see, go to gate number such and such, go through this way, and then you find maybe a sign saying that the flight will be delayed, but no problem, since you're registered, and this is in 2022. There's a sub-social network that's created for the event you're attending, and you just stand up there and you see some balloons with the names of the people, who they are, and you find someone, oh, okay, how are you doing? Maybe he doesn't remember who you are, but since there's a balloon on top of you with your name, he will say, hi, Elias, how are you? Yes, great, I'm doing great. After that, you finally board the plane, And by the way, no one had to do anything about the flight delay because everyone was already informed about what they needed to do. You receive instructions once you get into the plane as to where your seat is. Of course, when you get into the plane, you will have high-speed internet access, and maybe a client will say, hey, I have a problem, the program you did is not working properly. I will say, no problem. Now nothing will depend from your machine, everything will be on the cloud. So if you don't have your glasses with you, or if you have other glasses with you, you just put them on, you log on to your GeneXus.com account, and you see a full development environment. You just click on there, you see a virtual keyboard on the tray, a collapsible tray on the plane, and you start writing there. And then you put everything on the cloud and the application is already operational. After some time, you get just bored. And then we go to the other part. Okay, let's watch a movie. And now you don't even need to say whether you want a Netflix, iTunes, movie or whatever. You just choose it and your virtual assistant automatically, based on your past preferences, knows where you are going to download the movie from and at what price. You just decide to watch Casablanca and you just do it. You finally get to Uruguay, to the airport. And you do some sort of reverse similar process. You don't have to go through customs. I saw that it's not so easy here in Uruguay. It's somewhat slow. But maybe you buy a coffee or some souvenirs on the gift shop and you just take it. You don't have to pay for that, but because from the very moment you go through the door with all the technology, this is automatically debited to your account. You just left the place and guess what? The girls were not waiting for me. The ladies. Gisela, what happened? You promised that the beautiful ladies would be there. And I found the taxi there. And by the way, the taxi knew that my flight had been delayed for 1 hour. Then I get to the hotel. I don't have to check in. Same as in the airport. I just walk. I just go to the Radisson elevators here. I don't have to press any buttons. It just takes me to my room, and automatically my presence there is the check-in already. Same thing with registering for the GeneXus event. And what happens with my suitcase and my clothes? 3 months ago, when Gisela called me, my virtual assistant, based on my historical preferences, scheduled the cleaners to bring my clothes here and my suitcase, even though I didn't know it. It was already there. So when I left the taxi, the car without a driver went to the parking lot and left my suitcase over there. So when I came to the hotel, a reverse process took place. By the time I get to the event, everyone who is in the Radisson are creating a spontaneous ad hoc network, maybe on Facebook, and now I can see everyone who's in the event and whether they have liked me on Facebook before. But before my presentation, I had already set up some meetings with my clients. In those meetings, maybe those clients are scattered in Japan, India, and Brazil. So I go to my room, I sit, there's a camera on the TV and that sees the background. Then I get in and now it knows the difference between myself and the background. So maybe I can take out the background and just put a very modern office so that people will think that I have state-of-the-art office. But my virtual assistant will communicate with their own virtual assistant so that they have the same virtual space, so that we all see the same table and the same environment. And I will see 3 people there. Then Gustavo will say, there will be a delay in your presentation. So, once again, we're all notified, and we can do something else with their lives. I finally get here, and when I'm walking, my intelligent system connects with the projection system of audio and video and asks a lot of things. And it will ask whether I want to have assistance for reading my notes. And since I have very bad memory, it's good for me to have all the notes during my presentation. And I can do the same thing as Nicolas does, that he just puts an image there and he talks for 2 hours. Finally, I hope this is the last, and while I'm giving this presentation, those items over there are not on the screen, but they will be seen on my classes. So I can customize my presentation in a better way because I will know who of you liked it before. I can also see who are liking my presentation on Facebook on real time. And finally, when I finish my presentation, all the questions that you had been writing during my presentation will be voted by you with more likes, and the most interesting ones will be uploaded so they will be answered much quickly. Finally, you invite me to have a beer, and we get to the bar. The IDs that you see over there, the first one, you can see a similar scenario. This is something I wrote.
Hablan de cómo yo creo que van a ser estos aparatos del futuro. ¿Ok? Y bueno, ahí se acaba todo. Para más información, a ese bloque está aquí. Ahí está el Twitter mío, Facebook, developer.com, y muchas gracias. ¡Woo!